What's up, everybody? What's up, everybody? Wake up with me. It's your man, Tresvon Pratt with AIM, always improving the man. It's another beautiful day, another beautiful Monday, Mindset Monday. Last week, I told you guys we was going to talk about, I ended it off, we was talking about the traits of toxic people, and I realized I didn't even really hit a lot of marks as far as toxic people, but we'll discuss that another day. What we did land on was more than likely, if a person is toxic, they lack accountability. So today, we're going to talk about accountability because a lot of times, for one, people have been using accountability the same as blame. Is accountability the same as blame? Is accountability the same as blame? Put it in the chat. Give me a yes or no. Give me a yes or no. Is accountability the same as blame? This is one of those things, these are the words that you actually have to break down because they can be synonymous. They can be similar, right? But I'm going to go ahead and answer the question. No. Accountability is not the same as blame. And what I like to do now is I like to go ahead, let's bring up the true definition. Before before I go and give y'all the actual definition, here's my take. Accountability is holding self responsible. We already understand that every decision you make, every action you take leads you to where you are. You cannot get away from you. You are always with you everywhere you go. So you can always take accountability for your part of whatever because it's you. You chose to go wherever. You chose to talk to whoever. You chose to respond to whoever. You know, you might not chose to be triggered. You may not chose to feel. You may not chose to, some things that are out of your control, sure, but you can always take accountability for you. Now, us trying to force somebody else to take accountability for themselves, right? We can't make somebody else have accountability. But accountability is infectious. Once people see others taking accountability for themselves, they usually are easily assuaged to do the same for themselves. It's still morning. Blame, on the other hand, blame is a release of accountability. You get the one who gotta get my shine on. Looking quite ashy. Can't be ashy on camera like that. The one who blames and is quick to blame someone else is the one who is afraid to have accountability for themselves. The one who is blaming someone else does not want to look at themselves or their own flaws, their own part in whatever the situation is. They usually don't pay now attention to themselves. It's always somebody else's fault. When it comes to blaming, it's always somebody else's fault. Do you know somebody like that? Are you somebody like that? Be petty this morning. I encourage you. Go ahead and send this live over to him. Go ahead and send this live over to him. So is accountability and blame the same thing? I'll give you an example, right? Said blame is the coward's solution to his fear of accountability. I'll give you the example. And my camera seems to be flicking on and off. Anyhow, I'll give you an example, right? You decide to go to work. Let's make it just a simple one. You go to work, right? There are multiple routes you can take to work that you know of. One might be longer than the other. One might be whatever. You decide to take the quicker route, but it's the highway, and you know that this particular highway usually is cluttered at the time that you're going to be driving, right? It's going to be traffic. It might be an accident. You know that. You don't really take that into consideration, right? So you choose that highway to get to work quicker. Surprise, surprise, there's an accident. You get to work late. Your boss says, "Why are you late?" There was an accident that's out of your control. But your boss tells you that it's inexcusable. Like, what am I supposed to do? So you blame the accident for you being late. But you could take accountability in the fact that you chose to go that route to work, knowing that considerably it could be exactly what that situation was. My camera keeps flicking out. Y'all see that? Mm-mm. Must be a good message this morning, right? Let's talk about it, man. To blame is to disperse responsibility, right? To be accountable is to accept responsibility. Accept responsibility over yourself. When you're accountable, you hold your domain over yourself. Accountability is beautiful. It's a beautiful thing because it's something that, you only have control over you. If you do not, if you only have control over you. And every time you don't take accountability, you're relinquishing that control. Every time. And when you play the blame game, here we go. You become a victim. It says blame breeds victimization. Either we are a victim of our own weaknesses, mistakes, or ignorance, or we are a victim of someone else's. Let's free ourselves of blame by being accountable. The line between holding yourself and another accountable versus blame game is a hard one to define, but I mean, accountability just points back to self. I'm trying to simplify it because I understand accountability quite well. Like, say for instance, somebody comes to argue with you, right? And thank everybody for being here. I see you all. Uh, is accountability the same as blame? Answer yes or no in the chat. Uh, so let's say somebody comes to argue with you. They're emotionally escalated, right? They're already at that level. They're approaching you the wrong way and everything. They just come at you full force. How you respond is where you could take accountability. It's not your, let's say this person has already had things happen to them that stacks up, and we all do. When it rains, it pours. So they at their final straw, right? They at their final straw. or you seem to be susceptible enough to be someone who they can unload this energy on. So they come at you full force, no matter what it is. It's not that important for them to come at you the way they are. Come on, camera. So then, if you respond and meet their energy, it becomes a full blown argument, right? It's not your fault. It's not your fault that this argument happened, but you can take accountability of your part that increased or led to this being an actual argument. Instead, you could have just walked away, turned away, or responded with a more of a softer tone, like, hold on. You know, I de-escalate situations all the time because people, and this is a thing, when others know that you are more likely to be accountable, then they kind of throw that responsibility on you, right? When others know that you can take accountability for yourself, it becomes comfortable and they want you to now take blame for the entire thing. No. I could take accountability for my part. I could take accountability for myself. And this also helps with being able to say no, or, fine tuning responsibility. Because no, not everything is your fault. No, not everything is to blame when it comes to you. But you can take accountability for everything that happens to you. Hello? You start asking, like, well, why did they approach me like that? Why did they feel comfortable enough to approach me like that? What is it about me or that I've done that led to this? What did I do? What could I have done? And what will I do going forward, right? Because people who can't communicate thinks everything is an argument, and people who lack accountability thinks everything is an attack. So when you have accountability, it breeds for open communication, open dialogue, because you're not taking everything personally, right? And it's not just about reading between the lines and stuff, even though that becomes a skill too. Like, okay, that wasn't about me. Even if it was directed towards me, that wasn't about me. Couldn't have been. But you don't take everything as an attack. It's just like, okay, what are we trying to get to here? What are you actually trying to say? I could ask more questions. I could pay more attention when I have accountability over myself, when I have domain over myself, when I have control over myself. I've already taken myself into consideration and acknowledged myself enough to know that I didn't do anything to you, when it's an argument setting. Because this is also, this is for every situation in life. You can always take accountability for yourself. You can always take accountability for yourself. I hope my mic is not cutting off, because my camera is acting weird this morning. Trying to block this message. So is accountability and blame the same? No. I also know that, like I said, when you take accountability, it's both infectious. Other people would like to take accountability, but it's also like relieving. So when you take accountability, someone else expects you to take all of the blame. No, no. You only take accountability for your part, for your actions. That is not the same as taking the blame. So if there was a fight, you know, I want to give a different scenario. I just understand it. I'm trying to, how could I explain it and simplify it if I haven't already hit that mark? Because no, accountability and blame is not the same. Uh, if someone, if you take accountability, right, and you taking accountability for something that you may have done that may have affected the other person, may have hurt the other person, that person can respond in the sense of, okay, since you know that you did something, now that you can take accountability, now that you realize that you've hurt me, we're gonna stay right there. No, no. You gotta take accountability for yours too. This is where real resolution happens. This is how friendships continue. This is how relationships continue. If I only take accountability for my part and you can't take accountability for yours, then we become stuck. We're at an impasse here. And when you take accountability, it's funny because it's freeing and it's kind of like, well, I've done my part. I could apologize for what I've done, right? I could apologize for what I've done. But can you take accountability for what you've done? And once you take accountability for yourself, you're on to the next thing. You are on to the next thing, the next part, the next step to forgiveness of self, the next step to improvement of self. You start to learn accountability happens because of self awareness, which is the start to all self development. Is self awareness. That may be the topic for next week. Once you take accountability, you have a heightened self awareness. You see yourself, you understand what it is that you've done that partook in this scenario. Is it good? Is it bad? Is it effective? Is it productive? Is it something I need to keep doing? Is it something I need to alter? I need to change up, switch up a little bit, tweak it a little bit. You know, you start to ask yourself questions, you start to analyze yourself. And with that self-awareness, now you getting somewhere. Now, now you building. Now you get to see where you can make some adjustments when it comes to building and improving yourself. This is it. Say I want to talk about it next week, but that pretty much sums it up right there. It's like, yo, the start to all the start to all self-development is self-awareness. We can't intentionally solve a problem that we ourselves are unaware of. If you don't acknowledge the issue, how you gonna intentionally resolve the issue, right? Because ain't no such thing as coincidence. Every now and then, time heals, time fixes, you know, stuff that you ain't even realize was an issue. You might get a cut on your arm and you ain't paid no attention to this arm, but you've been bathing every day, so the cut was clean. and now it's healed up. You ain't do nothing intentionally or thought about it, right? But if you want to improve intentionally, you can't solve a problem intentionally without acknowledging the problem. You can't further grow and develop. How you know with the water? How do you know if it even requires water? That's next week's live. But right here, I'm here to tell you guys, no, accountability is not the same as blame. Accountability is having domain over self, it's self-awareness, and acknowledging that every decision you make leads you and has led you to where you are right now in this moment, right? Like I walked over here, I drove over here, I was in this area, right? You always could take accountability in that sense. Blame is to take responsibility over everything others outside of you. Now, if it's your responsibility, then blame can lay on you, right? You could take blame for some things if it's your responsibility. If you put your word on it, I'm going to do this, then it's on you. It's your responsibility. You can take accountability for it. But you cannot take blame. Please, people, you cannot take blame for everything outside of you because accountability is sexy. It's attractive. Once you start taking accountability, everybody would love for you to continue to take accountability. And they start to point out things that you need to be accountable for. And a lot of times it's not yours to take accountability for. They just want somebody to take accountability, and that becomes blame. So no, accountability and blame are not the same. They are not the same. Let's see what this says. Because I haven't even looked up I said I was gonna look up the actual definitions. Let's look it up. Let's look it up. About to get rid of this app out of nowhere. It's got all these ads. Accountability is the state of being accountable, liable, answerable, capable of being explained, explainable. Hmm. That's an interesting definition. I ain't never see that. Blame is to hold responsible, find fault with, to place the responsibility for. That's the difference. So the difference in those two definitions is you can explain, you can answer for you. You can answer for you. That's accountability as far as these definitions I don't really agree with. But blame is to throw the responsibility or the fault on someone else. So blame is throwing the responsibility outside of yourself. Accountability is accepting responsibility for yourself. Accountability is accepting responsibility for yourself. And it becomes a wide spectrum, right? Because when people complain to me, how am I so bubbly and smiley? even in this toxic terrain, because all in all, all in all, I could still take accountability for me being in this toxic terrain. It's not my fault. I'm not to blame that this workplace, this work environment is a toxic environment. It's not my fault. But I take accountability for being here. I signed up. I chose this. They hired me, sure, but I applied. Therefore, I come willingly to this toxic environment. I would love for it to improve, but in order for that to improve, then so many other people who may or may not be deemed toxic have to improve as well. That's what I wanted to see. You can blame yourself. You can, but that becomes self-deprecating. That's what I wanted to see. Thank you, TD. You can blame yourself, but that could become self-deprecating. So, what do I mean by that? Understanding the difference between accountability and blame allows you to see yourself, but not taking when you blame, you're taking the responsibility for everything. I will hold myself accountable for my actions, my reactions, my decisions, the effects I have over others and myself, what I say to myself, how I think, how I talk to myself, the decisions I've made because of all of the above. But I will not blame myself, for all of the external. When you blame yourself, just like that previous example, when you blame yourself, you could say this environment is toxic because I'm in it. It's my fault. No, it's not my fault that the environment is toxic, but I can have accountability for being in this environment. And that allows me to then like create my bubble so that I'm not affected by the environment, though I have to be here because of what I've already chose, decisions I've already made, right? So when you blame yourself, that usually most of the people that I've talked to, most of the prospects that I've had, if you will, because I don't drive on that end. Most of the people that I talk to that have depressive issues or is in a depressive state of mind has gotten to that point where they blame themselves. They blame themselves for everything instead of taking accountability for themselves. Accountability leads to action. Blame leads to like passiveness. It leads to uh that downward spiral of thinking that is depression, you know? So I don't blame myself. I understand the sentiment if that's where you was going. Uh, I understand the sentiment of like you can blame yourself. You can always look at you, but I encourage people not to blame themselves and learn the difference between and here we are, the difference between accountability and blaming. Because you can take accountability for yourself. And when you do that, you can make some action. You can take some action towards whatever it is, right? Let's say same scenario. This workplace is so toxic. Okay. When you have accountability, you say, okay, the workplace is toxic, right? The workplace is toxic, not me. The workplace is toxic. And thank you. Say accountability is more nutritive. It helps you grow. Absolutely. Absolutely. So it's like the workplace is toxic. Sure. I got to go to work though, because I got my own responsibilities outside of here. And I've chosen this job to be able to handle all of my other responsibilities financially. Cool. Right. So I'm still going to have to be here until I relocate, until I get another job. That's accountability. While I'm here, I don't want to endure the toxicity. Like I said, you wind up creating your own bubble. You start to find ways, like you start to find ways of navigating the toxic environment. Not that you're gonna just deal with it, but me, I know there's different things I do. Like I might show up early. You pinpoint where the more toxic areas are. I'm gonna stay away from those. The more toxic people, I'm gonna stay away from those. I don't have to talk to them that much. What is the toxicity? Is usually stacked on problems that aren't being resolved. Okay, what could I do to not have these problems? How could I avoid these problems? Usually lies in communication. He said, blame is dismissive, even towards yourself. Boom, boom. When you start to blame yourself, that's like the end. That's the end right there. Like once you blame yourself, it seems good because on the surface it's like you're accepting responsibility, but you're actually just like you're belittling yourself when it comes to blame. Like you're belittling yourself. Like that's it, that's all. There's nothing that could be done. There's no reprimand in that. And I see that every time somebody like gets to that point where they're outward with it, like I take blame for whatever, XYZ. It's like a done deal. It's like that's stamped, that's nothing else could be done about it. I don't hear like no resolution from there. Every time somebody gets to that point where they take blame outwardly and I'm talking to them, like I take blame for XYZ, then that issue is stamped. Like that was the solution to the issue. I take the blame. And that might work for a small situation for a small period of time, but that does not, like I said, it does not create actual solutions, right? It takes two to argue. And if and if there is an argument, it takes at least two to argue. And if there is an argument, then with you taking accountability and if one person takes accountability and the other one doesn't, then we're not going to be able to come to a conflict of resolution. We're not going to be able to resolve this issue. If I take accountability and you don't, that was the end until you do, right? And with communication, with effective communication, a lot of times what people do, and I can't say that it's always willingly, but a lot of times what people do and what they fall into doing is because you take accountability. Maybe I'm explaining it better now. And thank you, Dave. Uh, because you could take accountability for your part that led to this argument or this disagreement or this conflict, right? It's not every conflict has an argument. But because you can take accountability for your part, if the other person cannot, then they see you as the reason that we have this conflict. So when any type of conflict starts to arise, let's point the fingers back at you. No. With effective communication, you can't force someone to be accountable, right? You can lay it out, but like I said, it's infectious because you want to grow, because you want to resolve this conflict. When you take accountability, it's usually the next person can take accountability for themselves as well. You lead by that example. You show hey, I can see what I've done that affected you, right? Maybe I did, maybe I didn't know that this was going to affect you, effective communication. But from here on out, I'll be tentative of that type of action that led to that type of reaction. Okay. Can you do the same? Can you do the same? Because whatever XYZ that you did is where I'm trying to get you to see where you can hold yourself accountable. XYZ, whatever you did affected me too. And there's cause and effect there. And if the other person can take accountability for their actions and we both are working, man, that relationship gonna flourish. That friendship gonna flourish. That partnership gonna flourish, right? That coworker, management to staff relationship is gonna flourish. Anytime somebody can take accountability, right? Instead of blame, and those two do bear a thin line. But anytime you could take accountability, if everybody had more accountability, we wouldn't have a whole lot of the issues that we have today. Even with, especially when it comes to the mental health, it's because of everything and everyone else that I'm not okay. No, no. Other things, outside factors do factor into our mental health, right? We see and experience traumatic stuff. There are things that trigger me, and there are things that I think about that would like take me out, man. That would take me out. And I actually have thought of these things, like some of these things, and there are more things that you just don't know that will have an effect on you. That's true. But we cannot blame everything outside of us that may or may not happen or has not even happened. Like, I see people that's like, it's pointless of living or even trying or having any willingness or having any hope for the world because of the state that the world is in. Dude, how? What are you paying attention to? At what point are you going to take accountability for yourself? Like when people say, there's no good men, there's no good women in the world, that means there's no good people in the world, right? If you believe that to be true, if you blaming the world for the issue that you may be facing, then when are you going to look at yourself? Because if there's no good people in the world, aren't you a person in the world? Shouldn't you be good? It starts with you. So if you can't see the good outwardly, that means you can't see the good inwardly. What's happening on you? What's happening with you? You have to pay attention to it. You have to take accountability. It's not your fault that the world has no good people in your mind, but you can take accountability to be a good person. Right? And when you take accountability for something that broad, well, I'm going to just be the good person. This is what MJ was talking about with Man in the Mirror. It starts with you. You want to see any change, it starts with you. And I can go on and on about that because what you this the last tidbit sidebar I'm gonna make. What you tend to get what you expect. So when you expect bad, yeah, man. Talk to me. Talk to me. says accountability, ARC, apologize or acknowledge the wrong, reconcile or restore that which was taken, possession or a person's esteem, conclusion, that which we both agree. Boom. Boom. It's the arc. Apologize or acknowledge the wrong. This is also this is summarizes like those steps of atonement in the Muslim faith, in the nation of Islam. Uh Apologize or acknowledge the wrong, reconcile or restore that which was taken, a possession or person's esteem, and conclusion, that which we both agree. How can we go on from here? Hmm. Yeah, that's quite decent, Doc Rob. There is not always a situation in both we would both agree. But I do agree with apologize or acknowledge the wrong and reconcile or restore that which was taken, a possession or a person's esteem. Yeah, man. Um, I don't know if we can always conclude. Well, you said in that in which we both agree. We could agree to disagree too. Let's see. Says topic idea, sorting situations to realize what is your responsibility and what is not. Loved. Put a star by that. Love that. Love that. Sorting situations to realize what is your responsibility and what is not. Got you. Got you. Yeah. I'm gonna go ahead and write that down. Thanks for the suggestion. I take all suggestions. Anybody has any suggestions of any topics, right? TD says that was a great interview. Dr. Robert Utley was a guest on here for the Power People Lives that we do. Go check out his interview. It's called Righteousness, Respect, and Power. Or is it Respect, Righteousness, and Power? No, it's Righteousness, Respect, and Power. Powerful stuff. Powerful stuff. Thank you, guys. Let's see. I'm writing it down. Certain situations to realize what is your responsibility. No, that is actually really good. And we will discuss that because I talk about stuff, uh, a lot of stuff. I talk about things from experience and I try to like explain my thinking, but a lot of times I already have like this resolution. I already have some things that are definite about me. So my explanations be like, well, I already know the truth in this matter. But I don't necessarily be acknowledging like what was the pathway to this truth. And that's why I explain stuff from experience. Uh, and I have a lot of I want to share much more with the guys. But I love that topic idea, sorting situations to realize what is your responsibility and what is not. We might have to, if you're open to it, TD, we might have to do that one live because I like when I think of that. That's more of a Q&A. Like somebody says, okay, in this situation, what could you take? Is this your responsibility? What is not? What could you take responsibility for in this situation? That's what popped up into my head. So we might have to do that one You might have to do that one together, boss. Or have like a panel or multiple people. You know, I like the thought. We thinking though. We gonna create that. We gonna make that happen. So I appreciate that. So not to drag this live on, but let's close it out. Is accountability the same as blame? Yes or no? Put it in the chat. All my good people, put it in the chat. If you've been here, you know my answer. No. No, it is not. Blame is dismissive. Accountability is it leads to action. You can only be accountable for yourself, right? And you could only hold yourself accountable. Nobody else can. We try to force it. We try to force it upon other people, especially in this day and age where like everybody is pointing the finger at the next person. Well, guess what? You trying to hold somebody else accountable is actually you blaming somebody else. You did that. This is your fault. Okay, now you're blaming somebody. Well, only you could take accountability over yourself. Only you can take accountability over yourself. Let's have more accountability. Let's have more self awareness. Okay. Let's pay more attention to what we do and what we decide and what we think and what we feel. And this will lead to uh, more fruitful decisions going forward. You're not blaming yourself, which you're not dismissing yourself. You're not taking all the fault for everything, right? I've seen guys take all of the credit, all of the fault for their family issues when it's like, you might have done something, right? You might have been a certain type of way that could have been the catalyst to this familial issue, but you're not to blame. It's not your entire fault. You can take accountability for your part. It's not your entire fault that she said or does or the child is da 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 or you know the entire family is not your complete fault. You take accountability. What is it that I can do? Right? But if some people, hey, you lead the horse to water. But you can't make them drink. And some people don't drink and they still hollering they thirsty because of you. They blaming you for their thirst when you gave them water. Stop playing. We about to go off now. Okay. So please watch this live over again and learn more about accountability. So it's not that you're taking the blame and that you're not blaming others. All right. Much love. Let's keep on building. Let's work. Let's get this action going. Y'all keep on sending me topic suggestions. We're going to make these things happen. I love to help. I'm always improving myself. So these things are coming from experience, right? And I'm giving you guys the real. I want to keep on building with you. Hit me up. Let me know. Much love. Until the next time. Peace.